Yun Shui Zone. Outer Court, Foreign Affairs Hall. Task number 3721, to open up 3 acres of low-level spiritual fields in the Lingtian courtyard, has been completed. The task rewards the sect for contribution points of 7 points. Brother, do you need anything else? The female disciple of the handyman who sits in the Foreign Affairs Hall and is in charge of issuing the external mission, said with a professional smile, and handily recorded Zhang Qingyuan's sect token with 7 sect contribution points. Zhang Qingyuan pondered for a moment, asked, "How many contribution points do I have?" "A total of 103 o'clock, brother." "Then exchange me a spiritual stone." Hesitated for a moment, Zhang Qingyuan still made up his mind. The female disciple looked at Zhang Qingyuan's gaze, something unexpected, but the smile does not change. Although it is said that the outer disciples of the Yun Shui sect are not very valuable to the outside world, their status in the sect is still higher than their handyman disciples. "Okay, please wait a moment, brother." Talking, walked towards the backstage, ready to withdraw the spirit stone. Inside the Foreign Affairs Hall, there are not many people, only 20 or 30 people come to hand over the task. For the tens of thousands of outer disciples of the outer gate in Yun Shui, there are not too many committees. This is also normal. Poor culture and wealth, being able to enter the outer gate of Yun Shui sect to practice, basically there are family forces behind him, providing certain training resources. Unless it is really lack of training needs, if not, basically, the outer disciples are diligently practicing to improve their own strength, and they rarely get distracted to do the low-paying tasks listed in the outer chores. Which is like myself, there is no backing family support. Resources and other things basically can only rely on the monthly routines and miscellaneous tasks of the Yun Shui sect. Every time I eat and save, can barely maintain the speed of practice. Think of this, Zhang Qingyuan couldn't help sighing. It's been 3 years since I crossed into this world, 3 years and 3 years, how many 3 years are there in my life? If it is the protagonist in someone else's book, I am afraid that he has already called the emperor, and he has become a superior person to suppress one party. What about yourself? Worked conscientiously for 3 years, is just a small transparent part of the outer gate of Yun Shuzong. In this world of comprehension, neither fart. Ugh. A long sigh. Brother, your spiritual stone. The voice of the female handyman disciple interrupted Zhang Qingyuan's thoughts. His eyes turned to a jade box in the hands of the female disciple who came out. Put in the jade box is a fist-sized crystal clear spiritual stone in the jade box, surrounded by a trace of mist lingering around. Suppressed the faint excitement in his heart, took the spirit stone, and closed the lid of the jade box. "Thank you." "You're welcome, brother, go slowly." Walked out of the gate of the miscellaneous house and looked at the outer disciple token in the palm of his hand. Sensed that there are only lonely and 1-3 digits left, Rao had long expected that he had spent most of his savings over the past year, and he couldn't help but feel it. Over a year of savings. Zhang Qingyuan took a deep breath. "Fortunately, I finally got a spiritual stone. This can be regarded as a high-level currency in the realm of comprehension that can only be touched by oneself on tiptoe. If that idea can succeed, then I will really soar into the sky in the future. Even if it can't, 100 contribution points for a spiritual stone, can also be used for cultivation, and it is not a loss." The figure flies quickly. After many buildings, the gorgeous house did not take a second look. There was a lot of people passing through the outer door. Soon returned to the outer courtyard. Half an hour later, Zhang Qingyuan applied to the superintendent of the foreign hospital for a secret room for training breakthroughs. This practice secret room, that is a practice secret room built next to Lincoln's eyes, because of the spiritual spring, it is full of aura and clouds and mist. Is most suitable for the cultivation and breakthrough of cultivators. There are only tens of thousands of people in the entire Yun Shui zone. When too many people, secret rooms are in short supply. Naturally, it is impossible to allocate manpower to such a practice secret room. Therefore, in addition to 3 free opportunities per year, every disciple of the outer sect can only use the sect contribution points for application if he wants to practice inside. Zhang Qingyuan used less money. Of the 3 free use opportunities this year, there was only 1 left, so he didn't need to pay extra Zongmen contribution points. After completing the procedures, after a quarter of an hour, in a training secret room, Zhang Qingyuan is already sitting on the futon. Took out the jade box from his arms, turn on, the spirit stone inside shimmered faintly. Hope, I can succeed. Zhang Qingyuan's eyes flickered slightly, whispered. Close your eyes, holds the spirit stone taken out of the jade box in his hand. My mind sinks into the depths of my mind. Not long, a panel appeared in front of Zhang Qingyuan's Shi. Name, Zhang Qingyuan Realm, 6 Peaks of Ling Yuan Gong Method, Shui Yuan Jua Spells, Spring Breeze and Drizzle Light Body Technique Initiation Technique Rejuvenation Martial Arts, 9 Lian Bone Forging Fist Union Step Yun Shui 13 Way Sword Pose. A clean panel, is like the role page of some role-playing games, which exudes poverty from head to toe. Sanking Buddha and God Tathagata bless you, you must succeed. Sitting on the futon, holding the spiritual stone in his hand, Zhang Qingyuan kept meditating in his heart. Then, took a deep breath, recharge. No response. Recharge, recharge, panel recharge. Zhang Qingyuan, O panel, _ there is no movement. There is no change in the panel data, also did not hear a beep, the sound of the general system raising. As usual. Krypton project, failed again. Damn. The last trace of hope in my heart disappeared instantly. Sure enough, I shouldn't have any hope. Zhang Qingyuan showed a wry smile on his face. Completely gave up the idea of Krypton gold becoming stronger. Since the discovery of this panel, Zhang Qingyuan has tried many methods: gold, silver, jade, writing books to collect beliefs, going out to fight monsters to upgrade, etc., use contribution points to exchange for spirit stones. This is the last time. It seems that this is just a panel that can display and record my own state. A sigh, a faint sadness arose in his heart. Zhang Qingyuan is not in this world, his soul comes from another world. 3 years ago, in a thunderstorm, Zhang Qingyuan, who was lying on the bed in the rental house, was playing a game of immortal cultivation. Suddenly, a dazzling ball of light passed through the wall like a ghost without hindrance, and floated in silently. Swallowed him instantly in his stunned gaze. Then open your eyes again, the world has changed. He became a 12-year-old boy whose parents named Zhang Qingyuan died in the Zhang family, a small family under the Yun Shuzong's many forces. Is not the son of a patriarch, nor is it a family humiliation, a waste of cultivation, or a natural mocking face that can lead to a hatred and humiliated character wherever he goes. Is just an ordinary orphan who is not very noticeable in the family. Little transparency that not many people care about. There is no standard treatment for the protagonist. There is no cross-standard system, no ancient rings left by parents, and no fiancé who flew up to the branch to reunite. Kicking a brick is not an ancient artifact. Going to the market and shopping did not find any leaks. I was defrauded of a savings by a profiteer, and Zhang Qingyuan still has a heart for the profiteer. Someone who had been pitted could not help but put off a certain mind. Soon after that, coincided with Yun Shuzong recruiting outside children within the sphere of influence. Zhang Qingyuan, who is basically familiar with some life in this world, feels that there is no future in this small family who is not familiar with the place of his life. At the same time, in order to avoid showing any footwork among those familiar with the family, Zhang Qingyuan sold the few ruined houses left by his cheap parents to his family. At the same time, with this exchange of favor, he asked the family for a quota for the entry assessment of the Yun Shui sect, and went to the Yun Shui sect to test with the seeds of the family. In the subsequent one-year entry assessment, relying on the adult's xingxing and passing through a certain non-functional garbage game panel attached to the mental mind to practice peacefully. 1 year later, finally drove the tale of thousands of foreign places and entered the Yun Shui sect, became one of the outer disciples of nearly Wanyun Shui zone. This is also due to the particularity of the Yun Shui sect outer sect test. In the Yun Shui school, there is no magical tool that can easily see a person's cultivation aptitude. So in order to reduce the trouble, basically all the disciples participating in the assessment are arranged in the lower court, and then a basic Qi training method is provided for them to start practicing. No matter what you do, anyway, 1 year later, the 5,000 people ranked in the forefront of the cultivation level became outer disciples. As for whether you practice fast because of your qualifications in the process, or rely on a strong family background to improve by practicing pills, it doesn't matter. The important thing is the result. According to the deacon of Yun Shuzong, family background is also part of the advantage on the road of cultivation. Anyway, Zhang Qingyuan was diligent, practicing assiduously during that year, and he also relied on some tips on using the data panel in his mind. Finally broke through to the third level of Ling Yuan realm a few days before the end of the assessment, and barely entered the Yun Shui outer gate with the promotion tail of the disciple of the lower court. This surprised the family a bit. It's just a disciple of at least 50,000 from the outer sect of Yun Shui sect. It's really not very valuable. In addition to the death of both of my parents, I belong to the family, and the connections are very thin. So the family just follows the convention, take a little out of the family welfare, and give him a cheap training resource such as concentrating incense every month as a resource welfare for connecting feelings. This can be regarded as an investment in the family's children, investing in the future. Concentrate on the fragrance, a kind of cultivation resource that can slightly increase concentration when people meditate. It is relatively cheap, and a little contribution in the Yun Shui sect is enough to buy one. Family welfare investment, can only say that it is better than not. Zhang Qingyuan heard that, a descendant of the family who has the opportunity to attack the inner sect who is also in the outer door, the monthly welfare of the Zhang family is as much as one spiritual stone. 1 year of hard work, is nothing more than that. Although I am a little envious, but Zhang Qingyuan didn't feel any resentment of being jealous or wealthy. After all, the family is not run by your parents, and no one owes anyone. The family is able to give those disciples who are slightly more outstanding in the distant branches and veins a certain amount of cultivation resources and win relationships, and that is already considered as the best of benevolence. Maybe, is one of the reasons why Zhang Qingyuan could not become the protagonist. After all, the protagonists of those fantasy novels that I have read in the last life are mostly the heir day by day, and the courage to fight the sky with the slightest injustice, and dare to change the sun and the moon into the sky. And he, is just a salted fish with a natural character. Recalling many past events, really not very embarrassed. Fortunately, after struggling for more than 3 years, I was finally able to settle down a little bit in another world. As for the past life, can only go with him. If you guessed correctly, the ball of light before crossing that day should be similar to the ball lightning in a certain science fiction novel by Lu. In that world, I should disappear very cleanly. It is estimated that there is no ash left. It's a pity that Mom and Dad, but when I came into this world, I couldn't help it. Although I have been a little worried for 3 years, but it is also useless. I can only hope to cultivate into the true fairy in the legend, and have the ability to travel around the world and go back and see. I hope that my stupid brother can temporarily take care of his parents when he is away. Come back to life. Zhang Qingyuan refocused his eyes on the motionless panel in front of him, shook his head disappointedly. This panel, came to this world with myself. The page is basically the same as the character page of the Immortal Cultivation game I played at the beginning, except that the character name has been changed to myself. When I first discovered the panel in the Sea of Knowledge, Zhang Qingyuan is still very happy, is doing the deep blue and adding 100 layers, like the protagonist in a novel surnamed Lu that I have read, relying on own efforts to embark on the dream of reaching the pinnacle of life. What a pity, the last attempt to redeem the Spirit Stone to enable the recharge function failed. All common routines have been used. There is no movement. Is just a panel that displays general data about itself. Forget it, it seems that a shortcut to the sky in one step is impossible. Let's practice steadily one step at a time. Although I have some regrets in my heart, however, Zhang Qingyuan's character is still persevering, but he has lived for 2 generations. Is not the kind of person who complains about others. The cultivation base of the 6 peaks of this body's spirit yuan is all from one's own practice in the past 3 years. Daoxin is still persevering. Therefore, this regret didn't last long, so it dissipated. Although there is no recharge plus point function, but at least I can show my own proficiency in training skills. This is barely a very good auxiliary means. In this world, how many people can't stick to it? Is there no motivation because you can't see the gains and progress? In the past 3 years, the reason why Zhang Qingyuan was able to pass the test of the outer door without much support from his family, and grew all the way to the 6th peak of Ling Yuan, is not unrelated to the fact that the panel can show its own state and motivate oneself to practice hard. Is at least better than the natives without gold fingers. Thinking like this, was also relieved a lot. Then, Zhang Qingyuan grabbed the spirit stone, a stringent spirit, resume the meditating state. Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com. He intends to hit the bottleneck in the middle stage of Ling Yuan realm here. Although the Golden Thighs attempt failed, but the time to practice in the secret room is limited, so you can't waste it at will. Furthermore, this spiritual stone that failed to turn on the gold finger recharge function, the bottleneck used to hit the 6th peak of Ling Yuan, is the best. Use spirit stones for training. This is the first time that Zhang Qingyuan has been so extravagant. Close your eyes, intently. A quarter of an hour's work has entered into the state of Samdhi. With the movement of the soul in the body, wow! The aura produced by the refined spirit stone in his hand quickly poured into the meridians in his body, impacting the meridians, and it actually produced a faint sense of bulging, and there was a vague sound of turbulent water. Reiki absorption and operation, every granule cell in the body is cheering and absorbing frantically. As the sun turns into a deep spiritual element, a complete sun is completed within the meridians. The spiritual energy in the spiritual stone in his hand is quickly consumed, gray spread visibly to the naked eye. The spiritual transformation in the body has become more intense. Zhang Qingyuan clearly felt that, own bottleneck, is loose. Seize the opportunity, in one go. Boom! The bottleneck burst open, broke through. The spirit essence nearly doubled its vigor, and the meridians circulated turbulently in the body, and even the air around Zhang Qingyuan was full of air ripples visible to the naked eye, shaking. Zhang Qingyuan opened his eyes, the color of surprise in his eyes couldn't hide. 7 Spirit Yuan Realm, it's done. 7 Ling Yuan. Inner heart, couldn't help but agitate slightly. Tightly clenched right hand opened, the precious spiritual stone in the palm of his hand has exhausted its spiritual energy and turned pale and grey. Is like a piece of waste rock. A trace of flesh pain flashed in Zhang Qingyuan's eyes. This breakthrough, almost used up my savings for more than a year. But fortunately, finally succeeded. That bit of pain was also covered by the excitement of the spirit element that broke through the realm, surging in the body. Ling Yuan realm is the initial realm of cultivation. In this stage, the main practice is to absorb spiritual energy, and then rely on the movement of the Danshan meridian to transform itself into a spiritual element like a fingerarm, and gradually strengthen oneself. There are a total of 9 levels in the Ling Yuan realm. 1 to 3 is the early stage of Ling Yuan, the 4th to 6th are the middle stage, and the 7th to the 9 are the late stage of Ling Yuan. Nowadays, Zhang Qingyuan broke through to the late Ling Yuan stage. This cultivation base is not the best among the tens of thousands of outsiders of the Yun Shui sect. The most outstanding outer disciples have already reached the 8th and 9th level, and even those with the highest strength are only one step away from the true origin realm. Is a good player even if it is placed at the inner door. The current Zhongqing Yuan, the first to enter the 7th level of Ling Yuan's cultivation base in this Yun Shuzong outer gate, is only a middle to higher level. But if you work harder, you will have better luck. The 3-year intersect promotion to Taibi Nei may not have the opportunity to be promoted to the intersect disciple. In the cloud water, the inner door can be different from the outer door. Intersect disciples can truly be regarded as the real core of Yun Shui. They are placed in the Yun Shui sect power domain within a radius of hundreds of miles, and some remote small families have to be respectful. Only when you enter the inner door can you truly enter the realm of comprehension. That in and out of the netherworld, Palm's broken mountains and rivers, Zongmen grievances, family feuds, and countless comprehension forces constitute the vast realm of comprehension. The breakthrough was completed, and Zhongqing Yuan did not leave immediately. He sat cross-legged on the futon, restrained his spirit, and slowly stabilized his realm. The time for practicing in the secret room has not been used up yet, can't be wasted. Until time runs out, manager came to remind me, Zhongqing Yuan just packed up his things and left. The next morning, 3 bells ringing melodiously in the mountains. More than 80 people from the 17th court in Xin district quickly walked out of the yard and flew towards the square on Chaoyang Peak nearby. The silhouettes are so fast, rises and falls, in the midair, a gleaming black shadow formed. Today is a lecture given by Lu Zhongyuan once every 10 days. This is a personal teaching by an expert in the real element realm. It will also teach a magic or martial skill for free, unless something has to be delayed. Otherwise, basically no one wants to miss it. A quarter of an hour's work, the disciples from the 17th courtyard in Xin district came together, and they found their seats and took their seats. Not long, I only saw Chaoyang Peak outside, a figure wearing a moon-white robe came with a sword, and the true essence in midair drew the surrounding air into a violent wind, set off a brilliant glare, and floated across the sky. Fell on the facing balcony, the sword light under his feet gathered, and he returned to the sheath automatically. Fluttering like a fairy, the eyes of many disciples under the stage are all looking forward to envy. Among the crowd, Zhongqing Yuan is the same. Is even more yearning for those immortals who can fly into the sky than the natives of the world. In the previous life, in that extraordinary blue star, which man does not have a sword flying, the fantasy of flying and hiding? But fantasy is just fantasy after all. Came to this world, only has the chance to realize the dream of youth. Unfortunately, only when I reach the realm of the true element realm, can have the ability to fly with the sword. And that state, for Zhongqing Yuan, who has first entered the 7th level of Ling Yuan and is working hard towards the goal of the inner door, he is still in the realm of hope and unattainable. True primordial realm, the level of the elder of the outer gate of the Yun Shui sect. For these tens of thousands of outside disciples, true element realm, sect elder, is the level of a big figure that most people can see and can't touch in their lives. I have seen the Palm courtyard. With the Lu Zhongyuan falling to the first seat, the disciples under the stage stood up and saluted. Lu Zhongyuan looks majestic, waved his hand faintly. Don't be ritual, wait for good students to practice, don't fall into the prestige of my 17th courtyard. Give some encouragement, said some general opening remarks. Then Lu Zhongyuan sat cross-legged on the futon on the high platform, began today's lecture. I started speaking today, is a spell. The so-called cultivation, all you have to do is to refine the spiritual energy of the heaven and the earth, strengthen yourself, and continuously improve your realm strength, and finally surpass the heaven and the earth, and become the immortal. Of course, the true fairy in the legend has never been seen before. The big cloud and water school, passed on for thousands of years, has never seen a real fairy. And on the road to becoming immortal, it is natural to protect the way to face all the difficulties and dangers on the road. One is a magic technique, the second is martial arts. The magic method is mainly to convert the true essence of the body into natural elements such as gold, wood, water, fire, earth, wind, fire, and thunder to attack. Such as fireball, lightning, wind blade, etc., are the most common spells practiced by low-level monks. Martial arts pay attention to the power to belong to oneself, use the spirit element as a weapon to attack, or combine the close combat skills developed by the spirit element, etc. Between these two, is not exclusive. Basically, every disciple of the outer sect can master one or two surgical techniques at the same time. He will also use a few martial arts. The difference is that according to their own personality preferences, they have different emphasis on spells and martial arts. In this lesson, Lu Zhongyuan is talking about a spell. For example, how to cast spells more freely, how to increase the speed of spell casting, and how to use spells to attack reasonably in battle. All kinds of narration, explain the profound things in a simple way, fascinated the disciples off the court. Zhang Qingyuan is also concentrating his mind, listen carefully to what Lu Zhongyuan said. At the same time, on the panel in my mind, line of handwriting gradually refreshed and emerged. Lu Zhongyuan is worthy of being an expert in the real Yuan realm. The understanding of cultivation is not something that novices like them can compare. Some of the problems that Zhang Qingyuan encountered in the cultivation technique were all solved by Lu Zhongyuan's narration, and the light body technique was upgraded to the third level. As for the words appearing in brackets on the panel, Zhang Qingyuan just ignored it. Now he can't distract others while listening. This broken panel is purely an auxiliary panel. If you don't practice, don't listen to the lecture, or if you don't understand the practice, there will be no movement on the panel. Panel will never help you practice. Don't ask how Zhang Qingyuan knew, this is another history of blood and tears. On stage, Lu Zhongyuan finished speaking about the experience of using magic techniques. Next is to teach a spell. Free teaching once every 3 months has almost become a rule. This has raised the interest and expectations of all the disciples a little bit. However, this expectation did not last long, all dissipated and languished. Because Lu Zhongyuan wants to teach, is a non-offensive auxiliary spell called Develop Pursuit. All of you present here are teenagers, with undecided heart and temperament. Compared to these light and non-aggressive auxiliary spells, they still prefer fireball, lightning strikes, and other attacks are strong, and they look gorgeous. Don't say anything else, single hand rubbing a fireball or a thunder and lightning, its sound and light effects are much cooler than this development pursuit technique. The disciples under the stage were slightly disappointed. In addition, after listening to the lectures and focusing for more than an hour, all the disciples in the square relaxed, and some disciples began to wander away. Zhang Qingyuan was also a little disappointed, but he still cheered up. Listen carefully. Unlike other outer disciples, he does not have a strong family behind him. The source of the spells is only the Yun Shui sect. The only legacy left to him by his parents is a spell called the spring weathering raining technique used to catalyze the growth of farming. This is a spell used specifically for farming. Was obtained from the family by his father before, is also Zhang Qingyuan's longest practice and the most proficient technique. Want to learn other spells, can only be exchanged in the Tibetan Gong building with the Zongmen exchange point. The price is not cheap yet. It's one to be able to learn a spell for free, regardless of whether it is an offensive spell or an auxiliary spell, whether it will be used in the future. Anyway, let's talk about it after learning it. While listening carefully, also took out the pen and paper to make notes. Until Lu Zhongyuan finished explaining the main points of cultivation, Zhang Qingyuan took the time to look at his panel. Name: Zhang Qingyuan Realm, Ling Yuan Kizhong Gong Method, Shui Yuan Zhu Spells, Spring Breeze and Drizzle Light Body Surgery Initiation Technique Rejuvenation Development and Tracing Technique Martial Arts. In the spell interface, each of the spells learned has its own improvement. And in the last line, there is an extra line of development pursuit technique. This means that Zhang Qingyuan has understood this technique. Just go back and try to practice a few times, Can make it out. A lecture, a lot of rewards. Changes on the panel, represents Zhang Qingyuan's harvest of this class. It's not vain that he continued to concentrate on listening for more than 2 hours. Zhang Qingyuan's slightly tired face also couldn't help showing a grin of satisfaction. And now, Lu Zhongyuan, who had talked on the high platform for more than 2 hours, felt that his mouth was slightly dry. Paused for a moment, glanced down. Seeing the bottom, all the disciples were in low spirits, and their hearts were dizzy. Shook his head slightly. A group of idiots, they don't know how to cherish the time they are practicing peacefully. They will know when they leave the outer courtyard and enter the inner gate, or when it's time to leave the outer gate and enter the world. What is the road is difficult and dangerous. The exploratory pursuit technique is really not lethal. But this is the most practical technique when exploring in the wild. Leave the protection of the sect and enter this cruel world of comprehension, facing the monster beast that eats people, the casual cultivator who kills people and seizes the property, the disciples of the hostile section. At that time, any omission at that time may result in the loss of life. However, Lu Zhongyuan did not give a sound reminder. Although he is the head of the 17th courtyard in Xin district, but it's just a sect mission that was received by the inner door for the sect contribution point. Although these outside disciples called him a teacher, but actually it's not really a master and apprentice at all. In addition to the monthly lectures between each other, Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com does not have much intersection. Lu Zhongyuan is not a full-time school dedicated to cultivating the next generation of the Yun Shui sect. He just took over the task of being the head of the outer sect. Practice, I can only rely on myself. He just needs to do what's in front of him, has no obligation to point them to the problems they may encounter later in life. Therefore, Lu Zhongyuan did not give a voice reminder, nor did he say any thoughts of reprimanding. Is about to look away. Suddenly, Lu Zhongyuan saw an exception among the disciples of Shinayu Tianwei. Not only did that exception have been listening carefully, but he also took notes intently. This disciple, he has some impressions, seems to be called Zhang Qingyuan, from a very small family. When I first entered the 17th courtyard, Ling Yuan triple cultivation base is the lowest among the more than 70 people in the entire courtyard. But in the nearly 2 years of diligence and hard work, not only has he improved his cultivation level, but also left many people behind. Hey, it's already in the late Ling Yuan realm. I noticed the unstable breath of Zhang Qingyuan. Lu Zhongyuan was even more surprised this time. If I remember correctly, this kid family doesn't seem to support that much, often accept chores outside the sect to maintain spiritual practice. I didn't expect that in less than 2 years, I would climb from the bottom of the outer disciples in the same courtyard to the upper reaches of the 17th courtyard. About this, Lu Zhongyuan's heart, a hint of interest arose. Zhang Qingyuan, you have already reached the 7th level of the Ling Yuan Sutra. Lu Zhongyuan suddenly said, immediately caused a commotion around the otherwise quiet people. Even the genius kid sitting in the front row couldn't help turning his head to look at Zhang Qingyuan. 7 Spirit Yuan realm, has reached the late Ling Yuan stage, which is considered a relatively big breakthrough, and it is already at the top of the 17th courtyard. Under all eyes, Zhang Qingyuan is also calm. There is not the slightest tension or excitement on the face. Take it easy, stood up and respectfully saluted Lu Zhongyuan. Through the guidance and cultivation of the Palm School, the disciple was lucky to have a breakthrough yesterday. Was praised by name, don't know what to say. Okay, I remember that when you first became the head of the courtyard, you were still in the Ling Yuan triple stage, and you were at the bottom of the 17 courtyards. I didn't expect that in just 2 years, you would have caught up with most of the other courtyards. Lu Zhongyuan glanced at everyone below. You should all follow Zhang Qingyuan's example and practice diligently, so as not to fall into the name of my Yun Shui sect, do you understand? I would like to follow the metaphor of the palm. Many disciples responded one after another. Lu Zhongyuan nodded, continued, I respect strength in the Yun Shui sect, and Zhang Qingyuan has made a breakthrough, and became the 20th younger brother in the other hospital who entered the later stage of Ling Yuan realm, and according to the usual practice, became your 20th senior. Zhang Qingyuan, sit down in the second row. In this world, the strong is respected. The seats on Chao Yang Feng Square are arranged according to the strength of cultivation. There are 10 people in a row, 8 rows in total, sitting cross-legged in the square listening to the sermon. The first row is 1 to 10 of the 17 courtyards, which is the closest to the platform where Lu Zhongyuan preached. Is the second row, the 11th to the 20th. And so on. In the 17th courtyard, originally a total of 19 outer disciples entered the realm of the late Ling Yuan. Therefore, the disciple who originally sat the last one in the second row, the cultivation base is only the 6 peaks of the Ling Yuan realm. That was an outer disciple named Yao Ping, who occupied this position in several challenges and battles. He was extremely powerful and was recognized as the first person in the late Ling Yuan realm among the 17 courtyards. It's just that now Zhang Qingyuan is the first to make a breakthrough, replaced Yao Ping's position with the natural transcendence of the realm. With the voice of Lu Zhongyuan falling, Zhang Qingyuan stood up with a flat face, and among the envious, jealous, and even angry gazes of many people in the same courtyard, he walked to the end of the second row. Yao Ping, who originally occupied that position, stood up and gave Zhang Qingyuan a vicious look. But didn't talk much, silently retreated to the third row. The team automatically stepped back one place, filling in the blanks. The atmosphere is a bit dull, many glances, even the few people in the first row couldn't help but look back a few times. The breakthrough of the fellow cultivators in the other courtyard, what do many people think in secret, no one knows. Zhang Qingyuan is also calm, sat down flat among many eyes. Some adjustments, Lu Zhongyuan did not continue to lecture, instead, he talked about a major matter concerning the entire outer disciple of the Yun Shui sect. The 3-year outer gate competition of this school will be held in half a year. You should be good at practicing and strive to win a good ranking in the competition and enter the outer gate. I know that some disciples from the 17th courtyard have experienced 2 consecutive failures of promotion to the inner sect of the grand competition. This is the last chance to prepare for life. Don't say it is unexpected. As soon as this remark came out, sat in the same door in the middle and back rows, is a stagnant complexion. Separate, is even more pale, cold, and sweaty. Anxious, disappointed, desperate, all expressions vary. All of these, are all due to the rules of the outer door of the Yun Shui zone. Yun Shui sect is not a place to raise waste. Passing the entrance exam and entering the outer gate does not mean that you will sit back and relax from now on. You will be a disciple of the outer gate of the Yun Shui sect all your life. 3 chances for external assessment, or 10 years. During this period, if disciples of the outer sect cannot enter the inner sect, they will be released from the outside to expand the territory and fight for the expansion of the sect as cannon fodder. Unless you make enough contributions to get a great opportunity to break through to become an expert in the real Yuan realm, you will have to fight for the sect for the rest of your life. And once any one of these 2 deadlines is exceeded, even though he still has the status of an outer disciple of the Yun Shui sect, but various training resource benefits, the instructional lecture of the master teacher is gone. Is equivalent to being graduated. Is still the kind that sells himself to the sect. It's only 2 years since Zhang Qingyuan first entered the outer gate of Yun Shui sect. There are still plenty of time and opportunities. Naturally not afraid, the expression on his face did not change much. But in these 17 courtyards, there are many fellow students who have experienced 2 failures. Facing this last test, the strength is better, and the strength is lower, that is, loss and even despair. Okay. This is the end of today's class, you can go and practice yourself. There was no expression on Lu Zhongyuan's solemn face. He stood up, with the sword light behind him, gathered at his feet, and the whole person rose up accordingly. Gong send to the palm courtyard. All the disciples stood up and saluted. In the respectful voices of the outer disciples, the sword light flashed, sweeping across the sky, and Lu Zhangyuan's figure disappeared in the distant sky. Oh, there is still half a year, trouble. Yes, it's the second time I participated in the outer sect competition. If I fail again this time. With the departure of Lu Zhangyuan, on Chaoyang Peak, the disciples of the outer sects also began to disperse, and familiar friends whispered to each other, talking about the upcoming outer sect. There are depressed past students, worrying about the bleak future of the future. There are also new disciples who have participated in the grand competition for the first time. At this moment, Zhang Qingyuan. Suddenly, a voice attracted everyone's attention. I only saw the previous row at the end of the second row. Yao Ping, who was replaced by Zhang Qingyuan, stared at Zhang Qingyuan not far away. This time I lost a lot, but don't be too proud. I have already felt the bottleneck in the later stage of the Ling Yuan realm. It lasts for half a month, but for as few as 10 days. I will enter the 7th level of the Ling Yuan realm. Then you will be out of my hands. Give me back all the positions I took. After letting go, Yao Ping didn't wait for Zhang Qingyuan's response, snorted coldly, ignoring the crowd watching the good show around, walked away on his own. In the eyes of many disciples watching a play, Zhang Qingyuan's face was calm. There is no slight fluctuation on the surface. Conflicts, that was expected. The row of seats is more than just being able to get closer to Liu Zhangyuan during lectures. Also means the distribution of roads and resources. All of these are all related to the ranking of strength. The first row allocates more training resources each month than the second row, and similarly, the second row also has more training resources than the third row. The sect for the distribution of training resources is that the strong occupies more resources, and the weak occupies less. In this way, the disciples in the sect are encouraged to practice. The ranking dispute between Zhang Qingyuan and Yao Ping is not only that. There are even greater interests in it. In the 17th courtyard, the first 20 outer disciples can directly advance to the pre-selection of the outer gate competition. Read www.yuyuganshu.com entered the official competition stage. As for the top 20, they must conduct a small comparison in the other courtyard first, compete for 10, and join the top 20 to participate in the real Yunshui sect outer gate competition. And so, this is the 20th position occupied by Yao Ping, is not just a simple location. This is a dispute of interests, is also a dispute over the road. It is impossible to avoid. Zhang Qingyuan didn't mean to evade, either. That's a joke. Monasticism must be contended. Is it because you Yao Ping is always brave and fierce, so I step back and let you fail? There are some things you can make, but it is related to the interests of the road, it is impossible to let it. At the outer gate of the Yunshui sect, if you take a step slower, you will spend more energy to bridge the gap in the future. I gave up this time. Do you want to let the outer door dabby? What if you just provoke another enemy who doesn't seem to be easy to provoke? How is the result? I know after playing. At least, the combat power on the bright surface, the realm of the late Ling Yuan realm is enough to defeat Yao Ping. As for the future, who knows? In a lecture, he provoked a threatening enemy, but Zhang Qingyuan had an unusual mentality, and he left Chaoyang Peak unhurriedly in the eyes of the crowd watching the show around him. It's useless to think more, it's better to go back and digest today's lecture. The visualization technique taught in this lecture also needs training. Half a quarter of an hour later, Zhang Qingyuan returned to his inner house, began practicing behind closed doors to improve. Went back to the other courtyard. Zhang Qingyuan stayed behind closed doors, while the memory of the lecture is still clear, began to practice and master his own spells. The first practice is to develop the newly learned skill development pursuit technique. This spell has already appeared on the panel, which means that Zhang Qingyuan has learned this spell. The only thing that is bad is to practice it. You have learned the exploratory pursuit technique, you start to practice the display. The spirit element in your body drives the meridians surging according to the technique, and the colorful rays of light flicker. White smoke rises, you have failed the operation. First try, failed. But Zhang Qingyuan's complexion hasn't changed much. Had been expected. People who can finish the course and go back and try it successfully, either by fluke, either he is a peerless genius who learns spells. In the past 3 years, Zhang Qingyuan knows too, I was practicing a magic technique, so it was nothing more than a bourgeoisie. Need to practice several times. There is no fluctuation in mind. Take up the method, begin to try again. You succeeded. You practiced hard and digested the knowledge of Lu Zhangjiuan's lecture, your lightness skill proficiency +1. You practice hard, your proficiency in the birth spawning technique +1 consecutive days. Zhang Qingyuan was nestled in the inner house, is doing arduous practice. On the panel, lines of text are refreshed one after another, makes Zhang Qingyuan tired, is also full of joy in his heart. Name, Zhang Qingyuan Realm, the 7th stage of Ling Yuan Gong method, Shui Yuan Zhu spells, spring breeze and drizzle technique, lightweight technique, spawning technique, rejuvenation, development pursuit technique, martial arts. Combined with Lu Zhangjiuan's lecture, Zhang Qingyuan worked hard for several days, and the proficiency of each technique on the panel has improved somewhat. Often exhausts one's own spirit to practice magic skills, made in just a few days. The proficiency of Gongshu Shui Yuanzhu has also increased by 3 points. Got a lot. This increase in proficiency seems tiny. Actually, it is this little improvement that made Zhang Qingyuan in just over a year. The cultivation base keeps improving, successively caught up with the outer disciples of the same individual courtyard, finally reached the 7th realm of the Ling Yuan realm today. In turn surpassed many people. Unfortunately, this lecture did not explain the training of martial arts. Looking at the proficiency panel in front of him, Zhang Qingyuan is a little bit greedy. It would be great if Lu Zhongyuan could come to lectures frequently. In that case, a little improvement a day, the outer door in half a year will have a greater chance of entering the inner door than me. What a pity! The meaning is still not enough. What's more, this talk is about magic practice. The knowledge of martial arts will not be taught until the next class. Lu Zhongyuan is an expert in the real Yuan realm, his cultivation experience and perception are extremely precious to the outer disciples of the spiritual Yuan realm like Zhang Qingyuan. But unfortunately, after all, the opponent is not a professional leader, there is not much time to clarify the authenticity like the previous few days. In addition to preaching on Chaoyang Peak once every 3 months, the rest of the Chaoyang Feng big episodes are mostly outside deacons who help to teach on their behalf. Let the outer disciples practice separately. Or catching a pair of battles to improve experience, or mention some basic knowledge of the realm of cultivation, etc. Is precisely because of this, lectures held once in March are so highly regarded. Hey, what do you think? I am greedy. Zhang Qingyuan patted his head. This is no longer the blue star in the previous life. Although Lu Zhongyuan said that as a teacher in his previous life, he is certainly not very qualified, but among the hundreds of individual schools on the outer door of the Yun Shui sect, it is not too bad. The strong is respected, is the theme of this world. Throwing out happy thoughts, Zhang Qingyuan entered the arduous training process again. Practicing and improving the technique in the daytime, until the speed of the progress of the technique has slowed down, practice the newly learned tracing book, and at the same time practice martial arts when the technique is exhausted, spend a few more time meditating in the evening to practice internal strength. With perseverance, a few days later, the data on Zhang Qingyuan's panel has improved slightly. Visualization pursuit technique has entered the 2nd level, Zhang Qingyuan put it down. Return to the daily practice. Several days, the big gathering of the 17 houses once every 10 days begins, it's just a pity that it's not Lu Zhongyuan who appeared. Is a replacement deacon of the outer door of the 9 layers of Ling Yuan realm. The deacon is obviously also a mess, directly let a group of disciples conduct a intensive training exercise on Chaoyang Peak, and nothing else. After is finished, they disperse. Wasted a morning. Although it is a pity, but a lot of outside disciples had already expected it. Almost a third of the same door did not arrive. Yu read www.yuyuganshu.com instead ran to do other things. Yao Ping, who provoked Zhang Qingyuan before, was not seen. According to a colleague, Yao Ping is preparing to break through the bottleneck in the middle stage of Ling Yuan realm, and he is in retreat at this time. This gave Zhang Qingyuan a sense of crisis. After the big episode, Zhang Qingyuan thought for a moment, did not go directly to the house to practice. Instead, he walked in the direction of Foreign Affairs Hall. He is going to take on some external missions, get some training resources, improve the speed of spiritual practice. The next few lectures are probably of no use. You can skip classes at will. Outer Sect Dabi still has half a year's time. It's time to pick up some tasks and acquire some resources to speed up the practice. Half a month ago, in order to exchange for a spiritual stone, he has used up all the contribution points he saved for a year. At this time, the monthly resources issued by the sect have not yet come down, is basically 2 empty bags. After these few days of cultivation, his spiritual origin realm 7th stage cultivation base has stabilized. At the same time, under the perseverance and hard practice, the practice technique Yun Shizong has also reached the point where it is about to face a breakthrough. The breakthrough in promotion of cultivation requires training resources. And now the only place where Zhang Qingyuan can obtain training resources, only Foreign Affairs Hall. Practice is to retreat if you don't advance. Zhang Qingyuan did not forget, behind him, there is also a potential challenger hidden. Sea Area Mission 1. Inner Sister Lu brought back a 500-year-old resurrection plant from the Black Ming Gluo Cave. The spiritual energy of the elixir is rapidly dissipating due to an unknown reason. Now I am looking for a pair of younger brothers and sisters who have experience in planting elixir. Taking care, if it can solve the problem of elixir and aura dissipation, it will be accompanied by a reward of basic alchemy experience. Basic task reward, 20 contribution points. 2. 8 acres of spiritual fields in Qingshan town have matured, and 10 foreign teachers are now recruited to help harvest them. The time limit is 5 days. Basic task reward, 25 contribution points / person 3. Zifeng town is preparing to plant a spiritual tree. It first needs the help of a large number of cultivators with 3 levels of spiritual element and above. Each tree planted will be rewarded with 3 contribution points. There is no limit on the number of people and the time. Basic task reward, 3 contribution points / tree 4. Intersect Brother Zhao is going to leave for a period of time. First recruit some outer apprentices and sisters who are above the midlingual element realm to help take care of the Dongfu, and manage the elixir spiritual field around the Dongfu. It takes half a year. During the care period, you can be near the spiritual field. Spiritual practice. Basic task reward, 80 contribution points. Foreign Affairs Hall, Zhang Qingyuan's gaze swept across the handwriting on the projection stone light screen, choosing the task that suits him. Just looked at it for a while, didn't see the task that satisfies him. The 4 mission areas of A, B, C, D and D are relatively dangerous. They are mainly fighting and killing monsters in the territories under the jurisdiction of the sect, which is extremely dangerous. District C and District D are more inclined to the various chores in the gate. District C is mainly the planting and care tasks issued by the intersect brothers and sisters and the forces under the sect. District D is all kinds of cleaning the main hall, cleaning garbage, etc. A mission dedicated to earning contribution points for the low-level outer disciples of the Ling Yuan realm. The risks of both are relatively low, but relative, the contribution point is more than 1 difference. Introduction. For nearly 2 years, Zhang Qingyuan has been fighting in District C and District D, and has never been to District A and District B to take a look. Without him, it's just a pity. Zhang Qingyuan, who lived for the first time, understand the meaning of life better. In this kind of fantasy fairy world, all kinds of things such as murder and treasure, monster attack, road encounters, fighting and killing spreads to death. Wait, Zhang Qingyuan can almost fill up a 3 million word fantasy novel. The protagonists of those fantasy fairy novels read in previous lives. Every time you encounter danger, you can turn it into a disaster, defeat the brainless and provocative villain, and then embrace the beauty. On the way to rise, God blocks and kills God, Buddha blocks and kills Buddha, God and demon Pai Yi, like a calamity star walking on the earth, setting off a natural disaster that traverses the world. However, when Zhang Qingyuan really traveled through this world of spiritual manifestation, he realized how unreliable this is. After all, in this world, not everyone is the protagonist. At least, Zhang Qingyuan doesn't think he will be the protagonist. Has traveled for 3 full years, except for a broken panel that can only display proficiency, there is nothing in the fantasy novel. The fiancé who came to retiring from Jiading, lives in the ring of the remnant soul of the ancient strong man. Every time I change the map, I will always encounter the brainless villain who is targeted. Through 3 years, I haven't encountered anyone deliberately targeting, did not encounter any conflicts, except for the old-fashioned setting of the death of both parents, nothing else. 3 years have been dull, there are not too many twists and turns. After that, he worked hard at the outer door for more than a year, and he neither jumped out to ridicule the same door because of his cultivation base at the bottom of the 17th courtyard when he came in, nor did he take care of the arbitrary bullying by the power of a certain intersect brother. Is as plain as a boiled water drama. Until the last attempt to activate cheats failed, Zhang Qingyuan can already be sure, I am indeed not the protagonist in a certain book. In the case of, then the person who wrote this book must be dead. Can only make a living by picking up and gnawing the soil every day, couldn't pay the rent and was driven out by the landlord to live on the street, is covered with dirty hair like a doghouse, and can only hide under the flyover hole at night to avoid the cold, and cannot upload the manuscript if the phone is in arrears. The cold night wind poured into the sky bridge hole, can only wrap up the dirty quilt full of holes. Was shaken and chilled by the cold wind, and kept moving into the overpass hole, one trembling, a penniless writer who lives on the street. Miserable, down and out, trembling. Zhang Qingyuan thought about the street writers who lived on the streets in his previous life, and he had such a picture in his mind. Yes, that's what Zhang Qingyuan thinks, author of, who asked him to write mainstream novels like this. 3 years, plain as water, he doesn't rush on the street, who rushes on the street? Forget it, I think too much. Zhang Qingyuan quickly pulled back the divergent thinking, put it back on the task before him. Now that I have been promoted to the late Ling Yuan realm, I need more resources for cultivation, and I can no longer specialize in those farming tasks as before. Glanced at his panel, see the spelling column, the first row of spring breeze and drizzle, has almost broken through to the 4th floor. Zhang Qingyuan was a little speechless. This is a magic technique specially used for farming. It is used to water Lingguan and still aura. After entering the outer gate of Yun Shui sect for more than a year, Zhang Qingyuan has taken on too many tasks related to watering the spiritual field, and he has cultivated this farming technique to the most proficient technique. To know, General Ling's Hifu, Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com. The spring breeze and drizzle technique is only about 3 levels. He is already half a senior Ling's Hifu. The rewards for the missions in Zone A and Zone B are 10 times higher than those in Zone B and Ding. Now that I have entered the late stage of the Ling Yuan realm, and have a certain degree of self-protection, it is time to take on some combat missions. In this world, after all, farmers do not occupy the mainstream. Gritted his teeth, Zhang Qingyuan made up his mind. Although Zhang Qingyuan knew that the combat missions in the A and B districts were dangerous, but, not to mention resources, in the realm of comprehension, tenderness has never been the subject. Flowers in the greenhouse, is easy to die after all, it's hard to live to the end. Myself, also really needs to improve the combat experience. Then, Zhang Qingyuan turned and left the C area, is like saying goodbye to the past. Entered the B area of the Foreign Affairs Hall where he had never set foot before. Half an hour later, he walked out of Zone B. From the task of the projection stone in Zone B, Zhang Qingyuan picked, and finally found a not very eye-catching task in the middle part. Is one of the least dangerous tasks. Mission number 89. Recently, a spirit eater appeared in Lingtian near Qingshan town, which stole the crops of Lingwu, causing a lot of losses to the nearby spirit farmer family. The disciples of the feature set outer sect found the trail of the spirit eater and killed it. There is no limit to the number of people, and there is no limit to the cultivation base. The slashed spirit eater and the harvest in the rat nest can be kept for yourself. Basic rewards, 200 contribution points, a handful of Lingwu seeds. Spirit eater, when planting spiritual crops on the spiritual field, it is a low-level monster that is particularly harmful to the output of the spiritual field. Is no different from voles in mortal farmland. The difference is that the mortal voles just steal the mortal grain crops. And the spirit eater is stealing the Lingzi on the Lingtian. It is said that the mortal mouse swallows the spirits and possesses various demon powers, but Zhang Qingyuan is not a biologist, and he is not interested in finding the root of the source of the mortal rat. The reason for choosing this task is nothing more than spirit-devouring rats, although they belong to monsters, but they have no attack ability at all. Is like in a game, all the skill points are on agility, hiding and other auxiliary skills, only monsters who know how to level A. Facing such opponents, is most suitable for Zhang Qingyuan's first battle, gaining experience in fighting against monsters. Besides, there is also this relatively important reason, that is Zhang Qingyuan has a lot of advantages in this task, he knows the technique of development and pursuit. Spirit-eating mice and mortal voles have similar living habits, day and night out. After becoming a monster, he knows how to use monster power, use talent spells, is even more secretive. Only by finding its lair hidden in the deep mountains, it is possible to block it and kill it, otherwise, it can basically only look at the mouse and sigh, sit and watch it ruin the spiritual crops and helpless. As for the technique of exploratory pursuit, there are basically very few people in the outer door. Yun Shui sect has a large collection of magic techniques, and other schools rarely teach such auxiliary magic techniques when teaching magic techniques, and like Lu Zhongyuan, even if it is taught, not many people are willing to learn. And, unless necessary, no one would spend precious sect contribution points to redeem this spell. In this way, this task has been hung up in Area B for more than 10 days, no one has taken it yet. The publisher had to continuously increase the task reward, a small spirit-eating rat that can kill the 3 or 4 levels of the spirit element realm, but the task reward has been increased all the way to 200 contribution points plus a handful of Spirit Valley seeds. No one will take it. Or that no one can do it. To know, 200 contribution points are already the price of 2 spirit stones, not to mention a handful of Spirit Valley seeds, the price is more than 1 spirit stone. After killing the spirit eater, was sold as a monster in Fang Market, a few more spirit stones are credited to the account. Add up, the strength of a small one is no more than the spirit-eating rat of the 3rd or 4th level of the spirit element realm, and the reward after the solution is not even under the task of hunting the monster beasts of the later stage of the spirit element realm. According to Zhang Qingyuan and the handyman disciple who posted the task, Yun Shizong's outer gate originally had a little mouse catcher who specialized in developing tracing techniques, but the other party took on a relatively remote mission not long ago. Didn't make it back for a while. Among the many disciples of the outer door, the outer disciple who has practiced this technique, either has a task and can't walk away, either just look down on this reward. So the task is always hanging there, this can be regarded as a leak for Zhang Qingyuan. Took the task, go back to the inner house and prepare weapons and armors. After planning, Zhang Qingyuan went down the mountain, light body technique and union step alternately rush along the way. Rushed south for 170 miles, soon arrived in Qingshan town. After a period of practice and application, your jerky understanding of Yunyanbu suddenly penetrated, and your Yunyanbu has been promoted. Your union step reached Xiaocheng. Lightweight technique. Cloud and smoke step. Hurry up, an unexpected little gain, even Yunyanbu broke through and entered Xiaocheng. Makes Zhang Qingyuan feel good. Qingshan town is surrounded by mountains on all sides. Giant trees measuring 10 feet and 20 feet away can be seen everywhere in the mountains. Only a plain basin with a radius of more than 10 kilometers is in the middle of the mountains. Qingshan town was built on the edge of the basin plain. About 200 to 300 years ago, a mouthful of spirit spring appeared near Qingshan village. Overnight, an ordinary sip of spring water gives out a trickle of aura. Although the news was reported to Yun Shizong later, a sect monk came to investigate several times to see if there was anything. Tnk Dai Bao, it's a pity that I got nothing. In addition, there are not many auras emerging from this spiritual spring, it is not economical to send someone to occupy the station. So Yun Shui sect gave up the idea of occupying this spiritual spring. Immediately after that, a few influential little cultivating family forces began to fight for this spiritual spring. The so-called influential family power of small comprehension, Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com. There are only 3 or 4 cultivators in the family, and the highest is no more than the middle stage of Ling Yuan realm. This spiritual spring, for the Yun Shui sect, it's a chicken rib that can be thrown away easily, but for those incompetent comprehension families with 2 or 3 big cats and kittens, is the foundation on which a family can gain a foothold in the long run. The conflict is particularly tragic. Until later, a small comprehension family named Hu won the battle and occupied this spiritual spring. In addition to practicing in the spiritual spring, the spring water was used to irrigate the land and create a spiritual field. 200 years later, the former Qingshan village has become Qingshan town. The small family surnamed Hu is diligent and diligent. After generations of inheritance efforts, it has also created a 20acre spiritual field near Lingchuan. As a force under the jurisdiction of the Yun Shui sect, every year, the Hu family will hand in 50% of the harvest from the Lingtian to the Yun Shui sect. And the Yun Shizong recognized the Hu family's status in Qingshan town, and protected his family business from being looted by other outside comprehension forces. But that's all. As for other things, for example, during the planting and harvesting period of the spiritual plant, or if there is any problem in the spiritual field, if you want to ask the people of the Yun Shui sect to help, you can only spend your own resources and issue tasks at the outer or inner gates to let the Yun Shui sect disciples take action. These chores, Yun Shui sect does not care. Actually, the 50% tribute, in Zhang Qingyuan's view, is more like a protection fee for the underworld. The sun hadn't set yet, Zhang Qingyuan had already strolled to the edge of Qingshan town in a leisurely manner. And there, the head of the Hu family has already led the tribe to wait. The head of the Hu family is a middle-aged man with a fat body. 50 or 60 years old, Beza Hu, with small eyes, can be shaped, looks a bit like a profiteer in the TV series that Zhang Qing watched in his previous life. Seeing the crowd, Zhang Qingyuan, dressed in the outer clothing of the Yun Shui sect, quickly came forward, but the Yun Shizong Shangxian who took over the task of killing the spirit-devouring rats? He is really a young talent, worthy of being a child of the fairy door. Hu Yonggan, the head of the Xiaohu clan, the Shangxian first arrived, and there is a long way to go. The cold house banquet is ready. Please come here. Hu Yonggan smiled, enthusiastic, the tone is humble, and the words are full of flattery. Looks very much like the traitors in some war dramas. Zhang Qingyuan's original smile was stiff. A little ashamed, arched his hands slightly stiffly, Patriarch Hu joked, and I can't afford to be a young Junja, and I can't bear the title of immortal long. If you don't give up, Patriarch Hu can just call Zhongqing Yuan. Hu Yonggan kneels and licks flattering words, makes Zhongqing Yuan's face flushed slightly. Cloudwater sect is a well-deserved overlord force within 1,000 miles of radius. But, there are close to 100,000 disciples outside the sect. This huge base, if you are an ordinary outer disciple, it's okay for others to give you a face, but if you don't give it, it's not a fart. Before the mission, Zhongqing Yuan also collected some news slightly. Hu's family in Qingshan town, the first generation of ancestors was an ordinary disciple of the outer sect of Yunshui sect. He failed to get promoted to the inner sect in 3 times within 10 years. As a result, he was left the sect and was assigned to the Yunshui sect under the jurisdiction of the area. Matter between. Until old age, I learned from the same door that a spirit spring appeared in Qingshan village, then like a sect, he resigned from the post of managing mortal affairs. Took a few nephews and younger generations who were cultivated later, who had a little bit of self-cultivation, went to Qingshan village, after a fierce fight, eventually occupied the mouth of the spiritual spring near Qingshan village, took root here, successfully established the foundation of a small comprehension family and embarked on a journey of inheritance over several generations. Within the cloud and water sect's influence, those many influential miniature cultivation family forces are all born from this. During this period, Zongmen will not be of any help. At most, the ancestor of the Hu family relied on some contacts in the gate to allow the subsequent sect to recognize the establishment of the Hu family's status as a spiritual spring. If the ancestors of the Hu family failed in the struggle and died, Zongmen will not have any idea of coming out. Anyway, whether it is a disciple from the outer sect of the sect, or a small foreign force of casual cultivation, after occupying the Lingchuan and reclaiming the spiritual field, they need to pay more than half of the harvest to the sect. The status of the outer disciple, that's it. Unless it is a malicious provocation by some crazy guy, otherwise, the entire Yunshui sect's 100,000 outer disciples, some were robbed and killed secretly, some were avenged by their enemies, some were hunted and killed by monsters, and some were trapped in the dangerous relics and were killed by formations. Every day, the outer disciples might die. Which high-ranking sect would spend so much time, specially pay attention to the life and death of these insignificant disciples every day, and use it as a cannon fodder to cultivate the vigor of the many outer disciples? Zhongqing Yuan's positioning of himself is very clear. Can't enter the inner door is a trivial ant after all. Only those characters in the inner door of the Yunshui sect are qualified to let outsiders call Xian Chong. Affordable, I have entered the late Ling Yuan realm at a young age, and entering the inner gate in the future is almost a certainty. Why can't I be called a young man? How old is Hu Machi older than you, so cheeky, how about calling you Brother Zhang? Hu Yonggan treats others smoothly, do everything with exquisiteness. Zhongqing Yuan said a lot. After some courtesy, Zhongqing Yuan sternly said, Patriarch Hu don't need to be too polite. Zhang came here by entrusting him to solve the spirit-devouring rat. He also asked the Patriarch to take Zhang to the Lingtian for a visit, so he made plans early. Zhongqing Yuan is clear, he is here to do tasks, not to win relationships. Naturally. Speaking of Spirit Eater, Hu Yonggan's face also became solemn, and his face showed resentment. It's all because of that Spirit Eater. This season's spiritual field output has been reduced by at least 30%. Brother Zhang, you must solve the disaster for your brother. Then, under Zhongqing Yuan's strong request, everyone did not return to Hu's house to rest for one night, but went straight through Qingshan town to the back mountain of the town. Lingtian is not in Qingshan town, but in a low-lying valley in the back mountain of Qingshan town. Surrounded by hills, the trees are shady, there is a period of dense fog. A group of people stood in front of the dense fog. Hu Yonggan took out a jade talisman and poured spiritual power into the jade talisman toward the thick fog in front. Lingtian matter, it's a big deal. In order to prevent thieves from stealing spiritual things, or other insects and beasts, it is a tightly guarded place in any force, and more or less arrays are arranged around. But the dense fog blocking the woods in front of me, should be the cheapest kind of low-level phantom array in Hujiakongfang City. It can only confuse the line of sight, it is not much lethality at all. Because, Zhang Qingyuan did not sense the presence of water vapor in the dense fog. It's very simple to deal with this formation. If you close your eyes and walk in one direction, you can naturally get out of the range of the phantom array. Following Hu Yonggan's manipulation, the thick fog in the forest in front spreads a road. Zhang Qingyuan followed Hu Yonggan into the battle. Through a relatively deep passage, the sight in front of me is one of bright, I only see the front, is a small basin surrounded by hills. Basin center, opened up about 20 acres of fields. The fields are full of spiritual things, more than 3/4 of them are planted with lush linggu seedlings. The tails of the seedlings are heading and grouting, and the green valley waves are swaying with the wind. The remaining quarter is full of colorful spiritual plants. Around there is a small stream with water vapor rising and flowing slowly around the Lingtian. This is it. Hu Yonggan waited for Zhang Qingyuan in the spiritual field, points to the linggu crops that are bald from the middle. That spirit eater, it was discovered nearby half a month ago, ruining the trail of Spirit Valley. In order to prevent the beast from causing more losses, we have been sending people stare nearby day and night, but it turns out to be useless. The beast is really too cunning, and the concealment method is extremely good, and he runs so fast, there is no way at all. Speaking of the spirit eater, Hu Yonggan is the one who gritted his teeth. To know, linggu are not mortal grain crops, they can only be planted once a year. And, the part of paying tribute to the Yun Shui sect will also be slightly reduced because of the ravages of spirit eater rats. It's not just linggu that is ruined by the spirit eater, is the heart of their Hu family. Zhang Qingyuan pondered, carefully walk into the spiritual field that is sunken like the Mediterranean Sea, aside the surrounding crops, on the ground, the withered spirits that were sawed down by the spirit-eating rats were scattered, and the gnawed fragments scattered around the rhizomes could be seen. Picked up a small piece of debris, observed carefully, pondered for a moment, Zhang Qingyuan squeezed a French seal with both hands. Spiritual power revolves, development tracking technique, now. Taking advantage of the confusion of everyone present, the spirit eater lurking in the spiritual field has already escaped. Disappeared without a trace. Rao is Zhang Qingyuan, who knew that this spirit eater could not be so easy to solve. There was still a wry smile on his face. I didn't expect to take the quest from Zone B for the first time, was fooled by a mouse. But Zhang Qingyuan did not give up, pinch the magic trick with both hands, Ling Yuan revolves, development pursuit now. A faint white light appeared in his eyes. In Zhang Qingyuan's line of sight, there are already traces visible to the naked eye under the Lingtian at night. That is the trace left by the spirit eater walking in it. Zhang Qingyuan took a closer look, wanted to take advantage of the time when the spirit-devouring mouse escaped, find the traces it left when it escaped, and see if it could catch its lair. Whose guards around see this, also stopped the noise, clear the space, waiting for Zhang Qingyuan's investigation. Regarding whether that spirit eater can be removed, these Hu family members are more urgent than Zhang Qingyuan. This spirit-eating rat spoiled, is the linggu seedlings in the Lingtian, is the training resource for them and their family children in the next year. Just, they will be disappointed after all. I searched for a long time, didn't have much gain. Zhang Qingyuan was a little disappointed. How about my brother, did you find the escape route for the beast? Has been alarmed by Hu Yonggan, the head of the Hu family, who came to investigate the situation, couldn't help but ask. Difficult. That spirit eater is very smart and possesses a talent for concealment. There are not many useful clues at all. Zhang Qingyuan shook his head slightly. Her face was awkward. Hu Yonggan showed disappointment on his face, is going to smile hard, and say something nice to Zhang Qingyuan, so as not to have any thoughts in the other person's heart. But at this moment, Zhang Qingyuan's voice changed. However, I have one last thought, but I still need your support from Brother Hu. If it still doesn't work, then you can only ask Brother Hu to ask you to be clever. If you have any needs, please bring it up, my brother, Hu Yonggan, I will put it here. The entire Hu family's capital in Qingshan town will be mobilized with you. Hu Yonggan patted his chest immediately, makes a strong guarantee. Then trouble Patriarch Hu. Zhang Qingyuan's hands, holding a small piece of rotten leaf the size of a grain of sand, put it in front of you, observe carefully. It is the fine fragments of rotten leaves that stick to the spirit eater and fall from it. Standing in the eyes of love, flashed a deep light. The next day, under Hu Yonggan's order, has called a lot of white flour from the family. Then, sprinkled around Ling Tian, formed a white coil, surrounds Ling Tian without any leakage. This kind of white flour is truly refined food. Sprinkling grain on the ground like this really made some Hu family members puzzled. But last night, Zhang Qingyuan's sword broke through the air, and under the terrifying power that the sword aura swept across in a flash, many people were already in awe. Plus Hu Yonggan's support, no one has any objections. Soon, around the Ling Tian, are all sprinkled with white flour. Very good, then Brother Hu, let everyone go back and rest for a while. Whether it can be done, it depends on whether the spirit eater dared to come tonight. Well, good, then I will trouble Brother Zhang. Hu Yonggan nodded. From tossing last night to now, those Hu family guards are indeed a bit tired. So he left a few people around to take care of him, the rest followed and left. Zhang Qingyuan did not leave with him, but guarding around Ling Tian. After the battle last night, he went back to rest for a long time, and he didn't feel tired. Just stay here for now, while guarding Ling Tian. By the way, take advantage of this time to sort out my own practice. Name, Zhang Qingyuan Realm, the 7th stage of Ling Yuan Gong Method, Shui Yuan Zhu, Spells, Spring Breeze and Drizzle Technique, Lightweight Technique, Initiation Technique, Rejuvenation, Development Tracking Technique, Martial Arts, 9 Lian Bone Forging Fist, Yun Yanbu, Yun Shui 13-way sword pose. What is displayed on the panel is all the means that Zhang Qingyuan has. The spells are all auxiliary spells, the only one that is lethal, only martial arts. Among them, Julian Bone Forging Fist is the main internal fist training method for carrying spiritual energy and blood, and training the skeletal body. There are not many attack methods. Yun Yanbu is a means of moving lightly and has no offensive power. The only means of attack is the last Yun Shui 13-way sword pose. Yes, during the battle last night, Zhang Qingyuan has always attacked with the standard long sword allotted in the sect. There is only one sword technique that has offensive power. This is the basic swordsmanship uniformly taught to all the outer disciples of the Yun Shui sect, the Yun Shui 13th root sword style. We really made Zhang Qingyuan a little ashamed. In the past, I practiced behind closed doors in the sect. I rarely struggled with people. When I set out to earn the resources for cultivation, it was those who pulled grass from the spiritual field, performed the spring wind and drizzle technique to rain the spiritual plant, and hired people to harvest the spiritual valley crops. Your life is a task. Zongmen contribution points are basically used to exchange cultivation resources, so I have no spare savings to exchange other offensive spells and martial arts with the section. If it was before, it would still be okay to practice like this. But now I have been promoted to the late Ling Yuan stage, whether it is going out to fight the missions in District A and District B, or the next sect competition, the fight is bound to be unavoidable. After this time, it seems that we need to think about enriching the attack methods. Zhang Qingyuan combed and reviewed what he had learned, secretly alert in my heart. The world of comprehension is cruel to kill, a little carelessness is in danger of death. Zhang Qingyuan cannot live under the protection of Yun Shuzong forever, not to mention that Zongmen cannot be willing to cultivate the flowers in the greenhouse. Even if he did, Zhang Qingyuan did not want to let his path be completely tied to the hands of others. The means of fighting against the enemy is bound to increase. Zhang Qingyuan made up his mind. But then again, it's impossible to practice attacking techniques and martial arts in a short time. Let's not talk about the time spent exchanging expensive contribution points to the sect. Exchange it back, it takes a lot of time to cultivate successfully and build up combat power. But fortunately, there is a comparison of the proficiency panel, and there is still half a year in the outer door. Time should be enough. Shui Yuanju. After examining his own state, Zhang Qingyuan's gaze then fell on the column of exercises. Reading www.yukanshu.com. Shui Yuanju is only one thread away, will be able to break through to the fourth floor. This is a way to increase Zhang Qingyuan's strength in the shortest time. Shui Yuanju, this technique, is one of the most common basic exercises practiced by the outer sect disciples of the Yun Shui sect. The first 3 floors are unremarkable. At most, the spiritual essence cultivated is natural, which is deeper and deeper than other exercises. Only stepped into the 4th floor, will have a big change, has the specific power attached to the attribute of the technique. The power at this time, there will be earth-shaking changes. The entire 17 courtyard, there is no one who has practiced this technique and has stepped into the 4th level. Of course, this is not unrelated to the fact that the genius children in the other courtyard have family support behind them, and they have long exchanged other more powerful techniques from the sect. Basically, the top 10 geniuses of the 17 courtyard, the cultivation techniques are all better than the big tired Shui Yuanju. Few people would be willing to spend their time in this kind of exercises taught by the sect for free. Is the only poor ghost Zhang Qingyuan, cannot be exchanged for any other methods, and the guy who feels that Shui Yuanju and Spring Breeze Drizzle and other spells have complementary effects, will he earnestly practice this kind of common practice that is mediocre in the early stage and difficult to promote in the later stage? But no matter what, looking at the entire 17 courtyard, if Shui Yuanju has the deepest understanding, it is definitely Zhang Qingyuan. Almost. Once Shui Yuanju breaks through the 4th layer, and the spirit essence cultivated in the exercises is specially designed, then my strength will be greatly improved. But, it's too difficult. Outer disciples of the entire Yun Shui Zong's courtyard, those who can cultivate Shui Yuanju to the 4th floor are rare. Zhang Qingyuan sighed, looked at the 999 proficiency of that Shui Yuanju, could not help but feel a little disappointed. Zhang Qingyuan's qualifications for himself, very clear. Although he doesn't start with the standard waste material in some fantasy novels, he is not much genius. Is an ordinary person at all. A great way of doing exercises Shui Yuanju, no one can practice Dao at the 17th courtyard can be more advanced than him. One is because geniuses practice other techniques, the two are that Zhang Qingyuan knows his own economic situation, basically has no chance to covet other powerful exercises, and has been diligent in practicing. Is the help of the proficiency panel. During spiritual practice, according to the frequency and speed of Mizumoto's proficiency increase on the proficiency panel, Zhang Qingyuan continued to practice while gradually fine-tuning the state of his practice. Because, the exercises are running right, and the proficiency will naturally increase. And the frequency of increase, can first be whether Zhang Qingyuan is doing more with half the effort or with half the effort. Through this year, keep practicing, continuously fine-tune the practice. It can be said, now Zhang Qingyuan is practicing Shui Yuanju, has gradually undergone subtle changes, and it has become the most suitable method for self-cultivation. Is precisely under this kind of reason, Zhang Qingyuan's comprehension of the exercise method Shui Yuanju, can be said to be the first person in the 17 courtyard. But all this, although most of it is due to Zhang Qingyuan's own efforts, but with the help of gold fingers, is also essential. He is not a genius, is just twice as much perseverance as others, and the assistance of the proficiency panel. But, these two things, in front of the bottleneck in front of the 4th floor of Shui Yuanju, is of little use. can only rely on the talent of cultivation and perception, can understand the true meaning of the fourth level of Shui Yuanju. In the end, what is missing? How can I break through to the fourth floor? Zhang Qingyuan was lost in thought. But after all, is not much gain. Helpless, this breakthrough in the technique can only rely on a hint of cleverness that flashes by at some point, and this hint of cleverness is often met but not desired. Asai is preparing to let go of this thought. But at this moment, a small rustling sound seemed to come into the ear with the wind. Zhang Qingyuan didn't care, but the next moment, suddenly reacted. His eyes were sharp as a sword, and he shot straight into the spiritual field. In the spiritual field, Linggu seedlings vibrated slightly. Zhang Qingyuan and Hao Ran saw it. A grey figure faintly appeared in the dense cyan color. Spirit Eater. Zhang Qingyuan was surprised. Immediately, the whole person stepped on the tree trunk, and the spirit essence burst out in the body, and the light body technique and the union step were performed at the same time. There was a gust of wind on the flat ground. In the spiritual field, the spirit eater that is eating the Linggu seedlings is also amazing. At the moment Zhang Qingyuan's violent upsurge, 3 afterimages were split up, moving in all directions, fleeing like black lightning. Between breathing, 3 afterimages escaped from Lingtian, rushed into the forest, disappear. Escaped. But Zhang Qingyuan did not show any regrets on his face. The spirit eater escaped too fast, plus the confusion of 3 afterimages, it was difficult to kill it on the spot. Had already expected this, flashed to the edge of the spiritual field in 3 or 2 steps, a sharp glance, then, on the inconspicuous field ridge somewhere, on the lines sprinkled with flour, Hao Ran appeared a few messy footprints. Development tracking technique, now. Without hesitation, Zhang Qingyuan used the technique of developing and tracking. You read www.yuyuganshu.com. Then, a faint trace appeared before my eyes, extends into the forest, is very conspicuous. It's done. Zhang Qingyuan is happy. This time, it is not the breath of Spirit Eater, but the traces of white flower, that he uses the exploratory pursuit technique to pursue. Spirit Eater can eliminate its own breath. The effect of the second layer imaging pursuit technique is not great, which Zhang Qingyuan knew from the beginning. And so, after seeing the broken and rotting leaves that were tainted with the breath of spirit-eating rats last night, he suddenly had an idea. That is, since I can't find the breath of Spirit Eater, so can you trace the traces of something on the body of the devourer? And so, he asked Hu Yonggan to arrange someone. All around Lingtian are sprinkled with white flour. When entering and leaving Lingtian, the body of the Spirit Eater is stained with flour. And this flour, under the guidance and magnification of the development pursuit technique, it has become the best map beacon for Zhang Qingyuan to find the Spirit Eater. Without the slightest hesitation, Zhang Qingyuan raised the sword, jumped 4 or 5 feet in one step, rushed into the forest, ignoring the surrounding magical array. A few flashes followed the traces. From here to the end, several Hu family members who stayed around here, hasn't reacted yet. I saw Spirit devouring mouse and Zhang Qingyuan disappearing in the forest one after another. Go and find the patriarch. Was taken aback for a moment, a member of the Hu family holding a hoe, yelled quickly.